This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. One of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Episode number 404 of Real Life Ghost Stories, and I have 2 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from October the 13th, 2024, and story number 1 comes from Amy. I'd love to share my story, which to this day gives me chills still. I've always had an interest in the paranormal and have been very open-minded. There is an old derelict church not too far from where I live. I'll not share the precise location as to protect the property. However, it is in Lincolnshire in the UK. I know in the past it has been supposedly used for some cult rituals and alleged animal sacrifices have happened there, and it is said that it is haunted by a cloaked monk. There was a time in the last 5 to 10 years where people like myself enjoyed going there to spook themselves somewhat. I had been before in the daytime and nothing significant had happened at all. As I was familiar with the location and the area, my sister asked me one night if I could go with her during darkness, which I agreed. My sister, myself, and my other half drove there and spent around 15 to 20 minutes there. Again, nothing significant happened. Or so we thought. 2 things in fact did happen. Firstly, the church has no doors and windows. They've all been removed at some point, so you can see straight through the building from one door and out of another. As we walked around the building, I looked through and saw a dark mass by the further door. I chose at the time not to say anything. I really doubted myself and did not think too much of it. When we got home, we were discussing the area and my sister asked what the statue is in the middle of the church. I confirmed that there was not anything inside the church. I knew because, as I had said previously, I had visited during daylight hours and there was definitely no statue. The statue she thought she saw was in the exact same spot of the dark mass I had witnessed. So I shared the information with her. It's important to note at this stage that my sister did not know what is said to haunt the building, and I asked her if she could Google search an image of something she could liken the figure, statue or shape to, and I did the same, and on the count of 3 we revealed our Google searches to see if they matched. We had both searched for images of a hooded monk in a black robe. The second thing that happened to myself during the visit, which really sends shivers down my spine, is when we all got into the car to leave. For some unknown reason, I went onto my calculator on my phone, and inputted in my calculator was 666. I was adamant at the time that my other half had played a prank on me before we went and put it on my phone. But to this day, some 8 or 9 years later, he swears he did not do it. I very rarely use my phone calculator, and I'm sure that if I had done some calculation and come up with quite a significant answer as that, I would have 1, remembered, and 2, being quite superstitious, have cleared this number from my calculator. I obviously cannot confirm for sure that it was paranormal, but I have never returned to the church and never will. These are not linked, but during this time, my sister, my mother and myself also rented a property in Grimsby in the UK, which had some very strange happenings. We would hear footsteps in one of the back bedrooms. I often saw things, usually a cat in the corner of my eye, or hear slight breathing behind us. One time when we were sleeping at a grandparent's around the corner, my mother heard the front door slam and someone run upstairs. She shouted up thinking it was my sister or myself returning home because we had forgotten something. She wasn't pleased. She said she shouted to us to get down and go back to our grandparents, with no reply. She said she shouted again and eventually got so fed up that she stormed upstairs, to nobody up there. We moved out of the house some time later, not because of the goings on, but just because something else became available. A couple of years later, the house became available again. We were renting at the time and we chose to go back. The hauntings never ever frightened us. It always felt like home, but apparently the old man that lived there before us died there. He seemed like a nice soul, but things would often go missing for a day or two at a time. I would be really curious to know, in terms of abandoned buildings and ruins, religious or otherwise, how many of these buildings have these local lore links to cult rituals and animal sacrifices and all of that stuff. Because it always seems to be a thing in local lore that if you've got an abandoned building, people be like, oh, people go there and do all sorts of weird rituals and shit. Do they actually? Is that true? Or is that just a good story to tell people about an abandoned building? Now, Amy, to be clear, this is not me questioning the veracity of your claims about this church, right? But it always just strikes me as really funny that, you know, anytime there's an abandoned building, we've all heard stories about abandoned buildings in our locality where people have done weird shit, or they have done weird cult shit, or there's been like spells cast or sacrifices made. How many sacrifices are being made on a daily basis, if that's the case? Besides that, however, we do know that there have been tons of sightings of monks in various locations in various places around the UK and indeed around the world over the years. And it's so interesting that both you and your sister had the same experience. I mean, your sister being like, so weird, I wonder what that statue was in the middle of the church. Your blood must have ran cold, right? You must have been like, oh shit, because I just saw something similar. And what a good idea. How clever to be like, listen, why don't you Google what you saw and I'll Google what I saw and then we'll reveal our results. Because that is a surefire way of figuring out whether or not you both saw the same thing without having any communication about it. And look, you'd like to think that because you were in a religious place, you saw what can only be described as the ghost or the entity of a monk. You'd like to think, therefore, that the 666 in your calculator was just a weird coincidence. We're going to say it's a weird coincidence, okay? It's a weird coincidence. I also absolutely adore when people are talking about haunted houses and they're like, you know, we used to have all this weird shit happen, like footsteps, peripheral sightings. We used to have like disembodied breathing. We used to have things that would disappear and reappear again. And my mum that one time heard something like, you know, thundering up the stairs, thought it was us. But it's fine. You know, it was fine. It didn't feel threatening. Honestly, it never ceases to amaze me how brave people are.
The following ad is sponsored by Pets Best Insurance Services. Your pet is your bestie. Your therapist, your preferred match. It's easy to love them, even when they sneak your snacks. It's easy to protect them, too, with pet insurance coverage from Pets Best. Because it's all fun and games until they chew on something they shouldn't. With perfect timing, Pets Best helps protect your furry friend and your budget from this imperfect world. Get up to 90% on eligible vet bills for less than $1 a day. Find your perfect match at PetsBest.com. Pet insurance products offered and administered by Pets Best Insurance Services, LLC, are underwritten by American Pet Insurance Company or Independence American Insurance Company. For all terms, visit PetsBest.com/policy.
When it comes to weight loss, no two people are the same. That's why Noom builds personalized plans based on your unique psychology and biology. Take Brittany. After years of unsustainable diets, Noom helped her lose 20 pounds and keep it off.
I was definitely in a yo-yo cycle for years of just losing weight, gaining weight, and it was exhausting.
And Stephanie. She's a former D1 athlete who knew she couldn't out-train her diet, and she lost 38 pounds.
My relationship to food before Noom was never consistent.
And Evan, he can't stand salads, but he still lost 50 pounds with Noom.
I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. Even through the pickiness, Noom taught me that building better habits builds a healthier lifestyle. I'm not doing this to get to a number. I'm doing this to feel better.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom users compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now, you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with promo code HOLIDAY. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience. And the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code HOLIDAY. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com. And an extra $30 off with promo code HOLIDAY. Minimum purchase may apply.
And our second story today comes from Callie. Many years ago, I would have been around 11 or 12 years old. My parents went away on a trip to Mexico for my dad's work. I stayed home with my older sister who was looking after me, in exactly the manner you would imagine an older teen was looking after her preteen sister. I got sick. I mean, fever, in bed all day, sleeping 20 hours in a row, sick. I crawled into my parents' comfy king-sized bed, since my bedroom was in the attic and a flight of stairs away from the amenities I would need, and I knew there was no way I was getting help from my sister. I woke up in the middle of the night, drenched in a fever sweat, but feeling slightly less awful, and saw my dad sitting on the end of the bed watching me. I asked him why he was there. "I'm just checking in on you. Mom is sick too," he said. I asked if she was okay. And he said just a touch of Montezuma's Revenge, but nothing serious. I said okay and said I was feeling a little better but still crummy. He asked if my sister was helping and I of course lied and said it was all good. He laughed and said he should get back to Mom and he'd call me in the morning and that I needed to get some sleep. I agreed, told him I missed him and to say hi to Mom, etc. I got up, grabbed a drink, got back into bed and curled up watching TV until I fell asleep. Nothing felt unusual about this in any way. I woke up to the phone ringing. My dad was calling. He asked how I was feeling and I said better. I asked about Mom and he said she was on the mend. Now, I had not spoken to my parents before this call since they left the country. It was the 80s and long distance calls were not a thing that you did. No cell phones, no internet, etc. Neither of us acknowledged the fact that we had had a conversation in their bedroom the night before until much later. He recalled the exact interaction just from his point of view. I have no explanation. Fast forward a few years and my father is yet again away for work, which was a very common thing. My sister was arriving home from a summer away working, but bringing with her the crew she worked with so that they could have a place to stay for a night or two before they continued home. The first night they were there, I had a vivid dream of my dad banging at my window and calling for me to wake up and open the window for him. Keep in mind, I'm still in my attic bedroom, so he couldn't have been outside my window without a big ladder or the ability to fly. I wake up thinking that was a weird dream and go down to make some breakfast. There I run into one of my sister's friends, telling the other that he had had a weird dream about something trying to get into the house through a particular spot on the wall in the room they were camping out in, which was our formal living room. My mom came in and asked him where, and we all followed him to the living room where he pointed to a spot on the wall. There was nothing there, but my mother was shocked. When they had moved in, they had some pipe that fed into the living room. Not sure if it was from a radiator or a wood stove, but they had removed it and had the hole patched inside and out, and only my mom and dad knew. Then the phone rings. My dad is calling, wanting to know if we were okay. He had terrible dreams that strangers were in the house and he couldn't get in to save us. He said he was outside my window trying to wake me, then trying every single entrance that he could. We all thought it was weird, but not much else was said. Fast forward many years, and I'm in the hospital being induced with my first child and being closely monitored, since she was still a good month from her due date and my blood pressure was life-threatening. My dad brings my mom to check in, but she doesn't want to stay long. He takes her home. In the meantime, I get settled in and stabilised, and my husband is told if he needs to go home and take care of stuff, now is the time, since it'll be a while. I'm alone with my nurse when suddenly every alarm starts blaring. The doctors rush in and I'm being prepped for an emergency C-section, while no one is around. But somehow my dad is there. He dropped my mom at home but came back because he felt like I might need him. He took care of everything, called my husband to let him know to come back ASAP, and once I was in the OR, he went and got my mom. Fast forward to later that night. I'm still really knocked out from surgery, can't walk yet, but in bed with my baby in a bassinet at the foot of my bed. I'm alone. My baby starts coughing, then gagging, and then I hear her choking. I press the button for the nurse. No response. I'm trying to crawl to her down the bed, but I'm numb and struggling. I'm screaming for help, but no one is coming. People are walking by, but not helping. I get to my girl. She is choking on, I don't know, mucus or something, and then my dad walks in. He's a former nurse, so he easily helps her cough it up and gets a nurse to come help me since I'm now pulling stitches. And he needs help getting me back into bed, and I need to be checked. Turns out my button wasn't working, so no one was alerted that I needed help. No one except my dad. I don't know why these things happened with my dad. They are literally the only times he's done this. I have a regular relationship with him. We aren't extraordinarily close or anything. He has no known psychic abilities and he's never experienced anything like this outside of these times. I don't know what it is. I have no explanation. But these events have confused me over the years and they freak me out the more I think about them. Oh, I absolutely loved this story. How crazy. Because, you know, reading through it, I was like, people have hallucinations when they have a fever, right? They start seeing things, they start hearing things, and, you know, that's where we get the phrase fever dreams from, and people think they're real. But then your dad experienced the same thing, just from his point of view. So somehow, from Mexico to wherever you guys were, during your sickness, your dad was there and was able to check in on you? So obviously that was a time when you were sick, right? You were obviously really unwell, had a fever, he's able to check in on you, crazy. The next dream, though, where your dad was like, there was somebody trying to get into the house, you have a dream of him trying to get in the window to you know, he's all panicked and whatever. So was somebody actually trying to get into the house? So the guest had a dream that someone was trying to, or something was trying to get into the house through a particular spot in the wall, and it turns out there is a hole there that this guest couldn't have known about, right? So I wonder, did that actually happen? Did someone or something try to get into the house? And somehow, you know, again, across continents, across countries, across states, whatever it is, your dad is trying to check in. And maybe it's something as simple as you and your dad just have that weird connection. I think I referred to it as string in the last episode, which again, any scientists out there, I know, don't worry about it. I've had no training in science. I just know shit, okay? I mean, it really is just incredible. And then later you go to have this C-section surgery, and people who've had a cesarean will know that it's incredibly intrusive surgery, and you're left with a big old scar and lots of stitches, sometimes staples, whatever way it works, and you're not really able to move around very much post C-section. You have to be really careful about the way that you move so that you don't pop your stitches. So when you hear your baby in distress, it is not as simple as just going straight to your baby. Like, there is obviously, you know, issues with mobility, etc. And yet your dad was just there. He just knew, was able to clear the baby's airways and get everything sorted. Like, your button wasn't working, and if your dad hadn't showed up miraculously when he did, it sort of doesn't really bear thinking about what would have happened next. And I genuinely think it's even more fascinating that it's like, he's just a regular guy. He's a regular dad. We have a regular relationship. He doesn't have any like psychic abilities. This weird shit just happens between us and we don't know why. That to me is even more interesting, because there's no sort of precursor to it. There's no context of a paranormal family who are into spooky shit. There's no context of this dad has psychic abilities or you have psychic abilities. There's none of that. It's just, I don't know what's going on, but sometimes he comes to me in my dreams and he dreams them too, and sometimes he's saved my baby's life. What an amazing story. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Amy and Callie for sending in your stories. Remember, the last story came from October the 13th, 2024. And this is going to be the last mini episode this side of Christmas. So from the 18th of December, I will be doing 10 days of festive fear. That is 10 days of listener episodes to help you get through that holiday period. And also, this week's main episode is going to be Christmas themed, where we dive into some Christmas and winter and holiday folklore from around the world that is more creepy than festive. If you have a story that you would like to submit, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website, reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
Only Boost Mobile.
Boost Mobile
will give you a free year of service.
Free year?
When you buy a new 5G phone.
New 5G phone?
Enough.
But I'm your hype man. When you purchase an eligible device, you get $25 off every month for 12 months with credits totaling 1 year of free service. Taxes extra for the device and service plan. Online only.